The lights dim, the crowd hushes, and a name flashes on the screen that no one ever expected to see connected to this stage. Michael Jackson's daughter steps forward, carrying a legacy heavier than fame itself, and in that moment America's Got Talent is no longer just a competition. Before this story unfolds, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because what happens next will stay with you long after the music stops. The theater was packed that night, the kind of packed where the air feels alive and every whisper bounces off velvet seats and polished walls. America's Got Talent had seen countless hopefuls, dreamers, and performers chasing a moment that could change their lives, but something about this evening felt different. The judges took their seats, smiling, joking lightly, unaware that within minutes the atmosphere would shift in a way none of them were prepared for. Simon Cowell leaned back, arms crossed, his familiar expression calm and guarded. He had seen it all, or so he believed. Backstage, a young woman stood alone, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear of the stage, but from the weight of history pressing down on her chest. She had grown up in the shadow of the most famous entertainer the world had ever known. To millions, her last name was magic. To her, it was both a gift and a burden. Tonight, she wasn't here to be someone's daughter. She was here to be herself, even if that meant exposing wounds she had spent years trying to heal. When her name was announced, there was a brief pause, followed by murmurs rippling through the crowd. Some recognized the name immediately, others sensed something important was happening. She walked onto the stage with quiet confidence, her posture steady but her eyes revealing a deep well of emotion. The camera caught Simon glancing up sharply, his expression shifting from casual interest to disbelief. She introduced herself simply, without drama, without leaning on her past. But when Simon asked why she decided to audition, her voice softened. She spoke about living in a world where people thought they already knew her story. She talked about expectations, about being judged before she ever opened her mouth. She said she was there because music was the only place where she felt truly understood, where she could speak without being interrupted by rumors, headlines, or assumptions. The audience listened in silence. Even the judges leaned forward. There was no mention of her father at first, but his presence hovered in every word she spoke. Then Simon asked the question everyone had been thinking but no one dared to ask. He asked if carrying such a legendary name made performing harder. She paused, swallowed, and nodded. She said it made it terrifying, because failure didn't feel like her own anymore. It felt like letting the world down all over again. When the music began, it was nothing like anyone expected. No flashy introduction, no familiar melody. Just a soft piano and her voice, raw and unfiltered. The first notes barely escaped her lips, fragile but honest. As she sang, the room seemed to shrink, as if every person there was drawn into her story. She sang about loss, about searching for identity, about learning to stand in the light without being blinded by it. Halfway through the song, something remarkable happened. The audience stopped reacting. No cheers, no gasps, just a collective stillness. Simon, known for his tough exterior, sat frozen. His eyes, usually sharp and critical, glistened. The camera caught him wiping his face quickly, as if hoping no one noticed. But everyone noticed. The song built slowly, her voice growing stronger, more assured, as if each note helped her shed another layer of fear. She wasn't imitating anyone. She wasn't chasing a legacy. She was creating her own space in the world, right there on that stage. By the final chorus, her voice soared, filling the theater with a power that felt almost spiritual. When the last note faded, there was a moment of silence so deep it felt sacred. Then the audience rose as one, applause crashing like a wave. Tears streamed down faces young and old. Simon stood too, his hands shaking slightly as he clapped. For the first time in years, he seemed at a loss for words. When asked for feedback, Simon struggled to speak. He admitted that he walked into the night thinking he had seen every kind of talent imaginable. He said her performance reminded him why music mattered in the first place. He spoke about vulnerability, about courage, about how rare it was to see someone stand so honestly in front of millions. His voice cracked, and he paused, overwhelmed by emotion. The audience watched as the man known for breaking dreams was himself broken open by a song. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Instead of celebrating, she addressed the crowd again, her voice steady but emotional. She said this performance wasn't just about proving herself. It was about healing. She spoke about the pressure of living up to a myth and the loneliness that came with it. She said she wanted people to know that behind every famous name was a human being searching for love and acceptance. As she spoke, images from her childhood flashed across the screen behind her, not glamorous moments but quiet ones. A little girl laughing, drawing, singing alone in her room. The audience realized they weren't witnessing a comeback or a headline moment. They were witnessing a confession. Simon reached for the golden buzzer, his hand hovering for a moment as if he needed permission from his own heart. When he pressed it, gold rained down, and the theater erupted. But instead of shock or excitement, her reaction was pure relief. She fell to her knees, tears streaming, not because she won, but because she was finally seen. Backstage interviews later revealed even more. She admitted she almost didn't audition, afraid the world wasn't ready to hear her voice without comparing it to someone else's. She said she wanted young people watching at home to know that it was okay to step out of a shadow, even if that shadow was cast by greatness. In the days that followed, the performance went viral. Social media exploded with messages from fans and critics alike. Many admitted they tuned in expecting a gimmick and left transformed by sincerity. Musicians praised her courage. Therapists and educators shared clips, using her story as an example of resilience and self-discovery. The next round brought new challenges. Expectations soared, and critics questioned whether she could live up to the moment again. Doubt crept in, but she returned to the stage with a renewed sense of purpose. This time, she sang an original song about choosing hope over fear. The performance wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that authenticity became her signature. Simon later reflected on the moment that changed him. He said watching her confront her past reminded him that talent shows weren't just about voices or acts. They were about people, about stories that deserved to be heard. He admitted that night made him rethink how he judged others, both on and off the stage. As the season progressed, she didn't just gain fans. She built a community of people who felt seen through her music. Survivors of loss, children of famous parents, anyone who had ever struggled to define themselves beyond expectations found comfort in her journey. Whether she won the competition or not eventually became irrelevant. What mattered was the impact. She walked onto that stage carrying a name the world already knew and walked off having given it new meaning. Not as a legend's daughter, but as an artist who chose bravery over silence. And for Simon Cowell, that night became a reminder that even after decades in the industry, music could still surprise him, still move him, still bring him to tears. It proved that sometimes the most powerful performances aren't about perfection, but about truth. As the lights dimmed on the finale and the audience slowly filtered out, one thing was certain. America had witnessed more than a talent show moment. It had witnessed a young woman reclaiming her voice and inviting the world to listen.